Welcome to LexTalks, Legal Topics Simplified, your companion for exploring the fascinating world of law.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Today we're diving deep into a topic that's crucial for aspiring lawyers in India, special provisions for women and children.
A very important one, yes.
You've shared some great sources, articles on constitutional rights, summaries of landmark cases, and overviews of some welfare schemes.
A lot to unpack there for sure.
So our mission today is to unpack these provisions, explore their evolution, and understand how they impact lives, on the ground.
Looking forward to it.
You're ready for some aha moments as we decode the legal landscape and uncover some surprising facts about how these provisions have shaped Indian society.
It's always fascinating to see how law and society interact.
It is. On one hand, we have articles like 14, 15, 1, and 16, all emphasizing equality and prohibiting discrimination based on religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth. Basically, you name it.
The foundation of a just society.
But then, how do you achieve true equality when certain groups have been historically disadvantaged?
That's where these special provisions come in, right? They aim to level the playing field, address those historical imbalances to create a more just system.
So it's not about treating everyone the same, but ensuring fairness, considering the context.
Exactly. Context is key.
One of the sources you shared highlighted a case that kind of illustrates this. Kathy Ranning Rawat v. State of Saurashtra, back in 1952.
Oh, an interesting one.
It involves special courts set up in the state of Saurashtra, and the argument was that these courts were discriminatory.
Because they were created under a specific ordinance. Yes, I recall that.
But the Supreme Court concluded that this classification wasn't discriminatory because it was based on rational grounds and aimed at efficient administration of justice.
It wasn't arbitrary. It was about addressing specific needs and circumstances.
So this case really sets a precedent for us as future lawyers. Helps us to understand what constitutes legitimate classifications under the law.
A foundational case, for sure.
This brings us to Article 15.3. Feels like the cornerstone of these special provisions. It specifically empowers the state to make special provisions for women and children.
Absolutely, and its impact has been profound. Legislation, affirmative action, even judicial pronouncements. Think about the landmark laws. The Dowry Prohibition Act of 1961, the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act of 2013.
Oh, and the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act of 2005. All aimed at safeguarding women's rights and their well-being.
Precisely. And it's not just about enacting laws, it's about their real-world application.
Some sources mention how Article 15.3 has shaped affirmative action policies as well.
Take the reservation for women in panchayats, designed to actively promote their participation in local governance.
It's not just theoretical, it translates into actions that impact people's lives.
Real change on the ground.
One of your sources brought up the Vishaka and Ors v. State of Rajasthan case from 1997.
Yes, even before the 2013 Act.
This case led to the creation of the Vishaka Guidelines, which provided a crucial framework for addressing sexual harassment at the workplace.
Groundbreaking they were, establishing a mechanism for redressal before specific legislation was even in place.
Now, let's shift our focus to women's property rights in India.
A complex and evolving area.
One research paper traced the evolution of this through various legal reforms and landmark cases.
The Hindu Succession Act of 1956 plays a crucial role. Amended in 2005, it governs property inheritance for Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs.
So it sets a broader precedent for how we perceive women's economic independence and their right to property.
It does, and its impact extends beyond those specific religious communities. It influences legal discourse and societal perceptions across India.
What about those who don't fall under those religions covered by that act?
That's where personal laws come into play, often rooted in religious traditions, and as you know, they can vary significantly across different communities.
Leading to a very diverse and sometimes conflicting landscape of inheritance rights.
Indeed, a challenge for legal professionals.
So even with the Hindu Succession Act pushing for more equitable property rights, there are still these challenges, complexities, due to the diverse legal landscape in India.
It's a reminder of the ongoing need for legal reform and awareness.
One of your sources highlighted the Jinya Keotin v. Kumar Sitaram Manji case.
From 2003, yes.
This case dealt with the property rights of illegitimate children, highlighting the complexities within the law itself and its application in real-world situations.
Nuances and interpretations that can significantly impact outcomes, especially in matters like inheritance.
Speaking of which, Let's turn our attention to the Dowry Prohibition Act of 1961.
Sadly, dowry continues to be a major problem in India.
It's been around for decades.
It's a multifaceted issue. We need to examine not just the legal provisions, but also the deep-rooted social norms.
Firstly, we need to consider the definition of dowry itself.
It's not just about cash and gold. It can take many forms, including property, gifts, even demands for specific items,
Sometimes these demands are disguised as voluntary contributions.
making it harder to prove a violation.
This brings us to another crucial aspect: the social acceptance of dowry in certain communities.
It's often seen as a tradition, a way to ensure the financial security of a daughter.
Leading to underreporting of cases. People hesitate to take legal action, fearing that social stigma or reprisal.
A significant barrier to justice.
The penalties for dowry violations are severe, and awareness campaigns are attempting to challenge these harmful traditions.
A combination of legal action and social change is essential.
Speaking of landmark cases, we can't ignore the Shah Bano case from 1985. It sparked a nationwide debate about personal laws, uniform legal provisions, especially those concerning women's rights.
Shah Bano, a divorced Muslim woman, was granted maintenance by the Supreme Court under Section 125 of the Criminal Procedure Code.
So the Supreme Court invoked a secular law, essentially superseding the personal law in this particular instance.
It ignited discussions about the need for a uniform civil code in India, as envisaged in Article 44 of the Constitution.
This case really makes you think, should personal laws supersede national laws when it comes to fundamental rights, like the right to maintenance?
A complex and sensitive debate, indeed, with valid arguments on both sides.
The Shah Bano case brought these issues to the forefront, prompting ongoing conversations about legal reforms and the future of personal laws in India.
It's a testament to the power of judicial interpretation to influence social change.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive, from fundamental rights and constitutional provisions to landmark cases and that ongoing debate surrounding the Uniform Civil Code.
It's been an engaging discussion so far.
It's clear that India has a robust legal framework aimed at protecting and empowering women and children. But the journey toward true equality, that's an ongoing process.
And there's much more to explore.
Absolutely.
Before the break, we were discussing the complexities of the legal landscape in India, particularly when it comes to women and children's rights.
We looked at those landmark cases, analyzed some legislation, and even explored that debate surrounding the Uniform Civil Code.
It's a lot to consider.
It is. One thing that really stood out to me while I was going through all this source material was the idea of vulnerability and how, recognizing and addressing it is becoming increasingly crucial.
Oh, absolutely. It's a key concept in many areas of law now.
It came up in the context of domestic violence, trafficking, and even property rights, highlighting how different factors can make individuals or groups more susceptible to exploitation or abuse.
You're right. It's evolving beyond just physical harm or, economic deprivation.
Yeah.
It's about understanding those power dynamics, the social structures, and the various factors that intersect to create situations where people might face heightened risks, even if laws technically protect them.
So not everyone starts from the same position. Certain circumstances can create those vulnerabilities that need to be addressed. For instance, the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act of 2005, which we mentioned earlier, attempts to address these vulnerabilities within the context of, relationships.
It was a landmark legislation, for sure. It broadened the definition of domestic violence beyond physical abuse to include emotional, verbal, sexual, and economic abuse.
Oh, wow.
It recognized that violence can occur not just between spouses, but within a family context, including in-laws, siblings, and even those in live-in relationships.
So it's not just about physical safety. It's about recognizing those other aspects of abuse as well.
Absolutely. Financial, emotional, psychological, those are all part of it. And the Act provides a range of remedies for victims, including protection orders, residence orders, monetary relief, counseling.
Sounds like a pretty comprehensive approach to addressing domestic violence.
It aims to be, yes.
But as we've said before, laws are only as good as their implementation.
That's true.
What are some of the challenges in ensuring that this act truly reaches and protects those who need it most?
Well, awareness is a major one. Many women, especially in rural areas or from marginalized communities, may not even know their rights under this law.
So they might suffer in silence, thinking they have no recourse.
Sadly, that happens a lot.
That highlights the need for legal literacy. And those awareness campaigns, especially targeted at, vulnerable communities.
Absolutely. Empowering them with knowledge is crucial.
Another challenge, I imagine, is that social stigma associated with domestic violence.
Oh, definitely. Many women hesitate to report abuse, fearing judgment from their communities or repercussions from their families.
So they feel trapped, silenced.
It's a heartbreaking reality. We need to create a system where victims feel safe and supported to come forward.
A system that includes sensitivity and empathy from law enforcement, the judiciary, even healthcare professionals.
You're right. It's about creating an environment where the law can be implemented effectively, where victims feel empowered to seek justice, without fear of judgment.
So it's a multi-pronged approach, combining those legal reforms with awareness campaigns.
And with sensitive law enforcement and societal change.
This interconnectedness of legal and social aspects applies to other areas as well, particularly when we talk about trafficking, another issue where vulnerability plays a central role.
Trafficking is a global issue, and India, unfortunately, is a source, destination, and transit country. Your sources, various reports and analyses highlight how traffickers prey on vulnerability.
It's just horrifying to think about.
Whether it's poverty, lack of education, social isolation, traffickers exploit these factors to lure individuals, often women and children, into those exploitative situations.
The Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of 1986 aims to combat trafficking. What are its limitations in addressing the complexities of this?
One criticism is its primary focus on prostitution. While that's a significant aspect, it's not the only form.
Right.
Trafficking includes forced labor, organ harvesting, even forced marriage.
So the law needs to evolve to address this.
It does. And there's a growing recognition that trafficking is often transnational, involving movement across borders.
Making investigation and prosecution even more complex.
It requires international cooperation, sharing of information, and coordinated efforts.
It's not just about apprehending the perpetrators. It's about providing support and rehabilitation to the victims.
Absolutely. Rehabilitation is crucial. It's about helping survivors heal from their trauma, reintegrate into society, reclaim their lives.
And this is where the role of NGOs and civil society organizations becomes crucial.
Yes, they provide essential services, shelter, counseling, legal aid, vocational training to survivors.
So collaboration is key, involving those government agencies, law enforcement, NGOs, and international organizations.
It's the only way to effectively combat trafficking and protect those vulnerable individuals.
Speaking of child rights, one source discussed the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act of 2015.
Yes, it emphasizes a child-friendly approach.
Recognizing that children in conflict with the law are often victims themselves, requiring care and support rather than punishment.
The focus has shifted from a punitive approach to one that prioritizes rehabilitation, reintegration, recognizing children's vulnerabilities.
It's a significant step toward ensuring children are not unfairly penalized for circumstances often beyond their control.
It aligns with the principles in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which India ratified in 1992.
This convention emphasizes the rights of children to survival, development, protection, and participation.
It's about empowering them.
This recognition of children's rights is reflected in the Protection of Children from Sexual Offenses Act of 2012, or POCSO.
The POCSO Act has been instrumental in addressing child sexual abuse.
It defines various forms of abuse, provides for punishments for perpetrators, and establishes special courts for speedy trials.
It prioritizes the child's protection throughout the legal process.
This sensitivity and understanding of a child's perspective are crucial for effectively implementing laws related to children.
Absolutely, especially those dealing with sensitive issues like abuse.
What are some government programs, initiatives that complement these legal frameworks, that work toward ensuring child welfare, on the ground?
Well, we discussed the Integrated Child Development Services, ICDS, which focuses on early childhood care, providing health checkups, vaccinations, nutrition supplements, and preschool education.
Addressing malnutrition, promoting early childhood development.
And then there's the midday meal scheme. It provides nutritious meals to school-going children.
Increasing school attendance, combating childhood hunger.
These programs, along with those legal frameworks like the Juvenile Justice Act, the POCSO Act, they all demonstrate India's commitment to children's rights.
It's encouraging, but challenges remain. Poverty, illiteracy, child labor, and trafficking. These are still realities for many children.
Addressing these requires continuous efforts, a combination of legal reforms, social welfare programs, and most importantly, a change in societal attitudes.
This deep dive has been truly insightful, highlighting the complexities of women and children's rights in India.
We've explored those legal frameworks, the challenges, the crucial role of government initiatives and NGOs, the efforts to create a society where women and children are truly empowered and protected.
This discussion has been a reminder that law is not just about those abstract principles, it's about real people, their lives. And as aspiring lawyers, you have a crucial role to play.
Absolutely. Whether through litigation, policy advocacy, or raising awareness, there are so many ways to contribute to the advancement of women and children's rights in India. We've covered a lot in our deep dive into these special provisions for women and children in India.
Yeah, from those fundamental rights in the Constitution to the complexities of personal laws, even that evolving concept of vulnerability.
We've explored a lot, the legal landscape, the efforts to ensure justice, equality for these, vulnerable groups.
One thing that's become clear is while laws provide that framework, true transformation needs, like a change in mindsets, a commitment to challenging those deep-rooted norms.
You're absolutely right. Laws are essential, but they're just one part of it.
Creating a society where women and children are empowered requires more than just legal reforms.
It does. It needs a change in those social attitudes,
Mhm.
perceptions, behaviors.
It's about recognizing the inherent dignity and rights of every individual, regardless of gender or age.
And fostering an environment where those rights are respected, upheld.
This brings up a question that often comes up. Are these special provisions a temporary measure or, permanent fixture?
That's a great question. It reflects the ongoing debate about their purpose and future. Ideally, they're a temporary measure, a stepping stone towards a more equitable society.
So the ultimate goal is to create a society where everyone, regardless of gender or age, enjoys equal rights and opportunities.
Exactly, and making those special protections redundant, leveling the playing field so everyone can thrive,
This brings us back to that debate surrounding the Uniform Civil Code.
which we talked about earlier.
Proponents argue that it would be a significant step towards achieving equality, establishing a single set of laws governing personal matters for all citizens.
Irrespective of their religious affiliations.
The idea is to eliminate those disparities that can arise from different personal laws, ensure everyone is subject to the same standards for things like marriage, divorce, inheritance.
Adoption.
Advocates believe it would promote gender justice by removing those discriminatory practices that might exist and foster a sense of national integration.
A common legal framework for everyone.
But as we discussed, this is a complex debate with concerns about infringing on those religious freedoms, imposing a single code on a diverse nation.
It's about finding a balance. Individual rights and broader societal goals. Always a delicate process.
This uniform civil code debate reflects that ongoing evolution of legal and social discourse in India.
Grappling with those complex questions of equality, individual rights, national identity.
It requires careful consideration, understanding those nuances,
Right.
a commitment to finding solutions that, uphold justice, fairness for all.
It's fascinating to see how this area of law is constantly evolving, reflecting those societal changes, judicial interpretations, and the ongoing pursuit of a more just and equitable society.
And it's an area where, aspiring lawyers like yourselves can make a real difference.
Absolutely. Whether through litigation, policy advocacy, or raising awareness, there are so many ways to contribute to the advancement of women and children's rights in India.
One of the sources talked about the National Commission for Women, a statutory body that reviews legal safeguards for women, investigates complaints, recommends policy changes.
Promotes women's empowerment.
It highlights the importance of not just having those laws, but also those dedicated institutions to oversee their implementation, address those emerging challenges.
The National Commission for Women is crucial for ensuring women's rights are translated into real change. And we have similar institutions for children's rights.
Like the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights.
They monitor child welfare, advocate for their needs, serve as watchdogs, holding the government accountable.
Ensuring that the rights of women and children are upheld in practice.
They are key players in the journey towards a more just and equitable society. As we wrap up, it's important to remember that this is just the beginning of your exploration into this field of law.
It's been an incredible learning experience, equipping us with that knowledge, those insights.
Law is not just a set of rules, it's a powerful tool for social change. And as future lawyers, you have a responsibility to use it wisely, ethically.
The pursuit of justice is a continuous process. Every step towards equality and fairness creates those ripples, transforming lives, shaping a better future.
Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep striving to make a positive impact in the world.
Thank you for listening to LexTalks. Follow, subscribe, and stay notified to never miss an episode.